Hello, and thanks for joining us again on this virtual book club. I am excited again. I hope you are too, because it's Tuesday. That means it's got to be time for the virtual book club. Time for yet another dynamic author. And if you loved all the previous authors, you're going to love this author we have on today. So I want you to make sure that you take this time to click that share button. Share this even right now with some of your friends, your family. Share and start a watch party even now. Listen to this more specifically. If you are a creative, if you are a lover of poetry, you're going to love this guest on today. Sharing with us today, we've got Sharonica Nelson is with us today. Sharonica, how are you today?
I am well. I'm well, and thank you so much for having me on here on your platform. I really appreciate this.
You're so welcome. We're glad to have you today. Listen, for those who don't know you, won't you start by just sharing a little something about yourself with us?
Okay, so again, my name is Sharonica Nelson, and I am originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I currently reside in Bessemer, Alabama with my family. As a child, I grew up kind of back and forth. My mother resided in Birmingham, my father in Bessemer. And so I'm just kind of a child of both areas. Grew up loving both and living in both. I am an educator. I'm an adjunct college instructor of world literature. I am a mother. I have a 5-year-old, my baby girl. Her name is Camille. And like I said, I am a wife. Have been married for 7 years. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but I absolutely love it. We just keep God first. Yeah. And let's see, I am a writer, I'm a researcher, and I'm an educator. A lot of my research is centered on writing instruction, literacy, and urban education. And as it pertains to writing, I love pretty much all types of writing. I've written for blogs. I actually have one coming out for a national blog here really soon. I actually just got the acceptance today, so I'm excited about that. I've published a lot of my research. I mean, it's just kind of out there, kind of floating around. And I write my own blogs. I do have a blog on my website. And I also love to write poetry. Nice. And what's funny about me as a poet is that I started out as a poet in my teenage years. And I guess I kind of just drifted away, from it. I kind of dibbled and dabbled. I always kept a journal, even from childhood. Writing was just my outlet. I would just feel like so many emotions just kind of pent up as a teenager, and not really knowing how to work through those emotions, but writing has always been there for me. And I actually have 2 of my journals here.
Wow.
I try to keep them on me or around me, especially given this pandemic. Writing has really helped me to just kind of push my way through. What I noticed was that a lot of my journal entries turned into poems. They would just always kind of flow like poetry. And so I just love poetry, and for me, it's one of the best ways and the easiest ways for me to really express myself. And so I just always gravitate towards it.
Good. So being a poetry lover myself, I used to write poetry back In my younger years, I used to write poetry, and I loved it as well. Let's talk about your book of poetry called Unapologetic. I like that title. How did
Thank
you
you.
get to the place where you were ready to release this book of poems?
So I got to this place because, again, given the current pandemic, I guess just having time to sit with our thoughts and our feelings.
Mm,
My grandmother actually passed during the
mm,
pandemic, and it was due to COVID-19.
wow.
Such a sad and tragic passing. And
Mm,
then after that, we had about, I would say, three more family members to pass, not necessarily due to COVID, but one other was COVID, but the other two were just kind of sudden.
okay.
And then everything was going on with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and
Yes.
Breonna Taylor, all of those things, and then just not really having an outlet. And so here again, I'm just sitting there with my poetry, and it was my only way to write out the emotions stemming from my grandmother, the only way to kind of get out that frustration from the societal issues. And, I just felt like the Spirit of the Lord just tell me, now was the time. Your voice is needed. Your voice is going to be necessary in years to come. People are going to want to know about how it felt during that time and what was going through people's minds and how did people cope, how did people get through that time period. And so I just took it as, God pushing me towards a goal that's been one of my goals for over 20 years. Like I said, I had always written poetry and I wanted to publish. I've won awards as a high school student in writing poetry and all of that. I've recited poetry at school programs and all of that. And so again, I always wanted to publish, but I never knew when the right time would be. So this time during the pandemic, having time off, having time to process through a lot of feelings and emotions, through death and grief and societal woes, I just said it was time. And so my book, Unapologetic, this is it right here. It is actually a poem that is spoken from the Black female voice on the themes of life, love, and society.
Okay.
Now, I do understand, and I realize that my voice isn't the only Black female voice, but a voice is necessary right now.
Yes.
And so I wanted to put it out there how we process through grief in life. I wanted to put it out there how, what's going on in my mind pertaining to my uncles, my brother, my African-American husband. What do we really think and feel as all of these things are going on? How do we process? And I wanted to just really give expression to those, again, through poetry.
Okay.
So again, I talk about the themes of life, love, and society. And within those three things, not only do I talk about the societal woes, but then I also, I really delve into Black love. We get such a bad rap in the media and how we're portrayed in our relationships. And, Black love is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I enjoy, my husband, I enjoy being married. We share something that's beautiful. We're a pretty young couple, but we're a serious couple. And most of my friends who are married, same age group, but we are serious about each other. And so I'm like, I want to give voice to that. I want people to know that all of us aren't out here cheating and, stepping out on each other or treating each other badly. Like, we really have God at the forefront of our marriage. What we share is beautiful. We are two young parents trying to raise our daughter, and we do it with God at the forefront and with love in our hearts. And I wanted to give voice to that love. And one of my mantras is writing is not just meant to be read, it's meant to be felt. And so when I write in my poetry, that's my goal. My goal is not just for people to read it, but to feel it.
Feel it.
And so especially when it comes to that love piece that I talk about, that I share with my fine husband. I just really want people to feel that and allow it to resonate. And then also I talk about issues of motherhood, and I also pay homage to the ancestors and to my grandmother and our grandmothers, who are just the backbones of our family. And I do it through verse. through verse. And again, I just want it to be felt. I want it to be shared and understood, and more importantly, to be appreciated. You know, for a Black female voice to be out there and to be appreciated.
Good, good. So now I know you're an educator. And so in writing poetry, I think many people who may be even watching now, when you're writing poetry, back in school, we were told that there are different types and forms of poetry. You, in your writing your book, you have conquered all those forms and put them all, compiled all those forms of poetry and been able to put them all in Unapologetic. Can you share some of the forms of poetry that you've used, and then share a piece of the poetry that uses that form of poetry?
Absolutely. So some of the forms of poetry that I utilize in the book, I utilize the haiku, and that is one that I think, you know, most people might really remember from school. And we're taught that, you know, it's a Japanese form of poetry.
Right.
You know, it's only 3 lines. The first line is 5 syllables. The second one is 7 syllables. And then the third one is 5 syllables. We were also taught that it stemmed from nature. It had to be something about nature.
Okay.
But you know, we have to have that creativity and have that leeway to do things as they come to us. So mine are not all necessarily about love, about nature, but they are about things that we could say take place in nature, in our natural world and society. So one of the haikus that I want to share, and I am gonna say this also, that a lot of my poetry is political. And so if you don't want to hear, or if you are turned off by, you know, political poetry, then but I just speak the truth. You know, I'm just to be honest, because I feel like we're at a time where the truth needs to be really spoken. And again, from the Black female perspective, how do we really feel? What are we really thinking?
Absolutely.
Right into these societal woes. So I'll share in a haiku, and I'm looking for one right now. I have several. They're broken up into different sections.
Okay.
And I'm looking for one of the more political ones, one that's on society. Give me one. Yeah. Okay. So this one is entitled "Black in America," and this is the haiku. So it's really short. Okay. Right. But Black in America, alienated, left to our own devices to overcome hate. And I'll read it again. Alienated, left to our own devices to overcome hate. And so this piece, you know, for me, again, as the title is Black in America, you know, it really does feel like we've been sort of alienated. Right now, we see this sort of surge of, you know, allyship and co-conspirators, which is good. But for so long, I just feel as though as a people, we have been kind of alienated, and we have been but just dominated as a people as it comes to race in this country. You know, it stemmed from all the way back in the transatlantic slave trade. We were just kind of left to our own devices to kind of overcome those things that we knew were wrong and immoral and unjust. But you know, for so long, our cries fell on deaf ears. But like I said, now, you know, we're coming to this place where the conversations are being held. You know, a lot of changes are being made. And I do think it's one reason is because of the pandemic. You know, we're able to sit quietly. We don't have football to turn to and basketball to turn to. We kind of have to sit in a lot of these societal issues. And so hopefully, you know, one day this will not be true, that we're no longer left to our own devices to kind of figure out ways to push people to overcome the hatred that's within their hearts. But as Black people, we continue to push, we continue to you know, knock down walls, and we continue to survive. So that's where that piece came from.
Okay, good. So you said you talk about life in there as well, right? Life and love. So what's another piece that you think is a good piece to share with the people today?
Okay, so one other piece, let's see. I will read this one. It's called I Looked at Him.
Okay.
Okay. And this one, again, as an educator, I have to kind of throw out what I'm reading and why I'm reading it. So I mentioned earlier about, Black love and, how I think that it's so beautiful. And so I definitely want to lift some Black love while I have a moment on your segment. But also this piece is what you would call rhyming couplet. And it where, you have two lines and the end, they rhyme. Okay. So it's going to be a series of rhyming couplets. Okay.
Gotcha.
And this one is entitled I Looked at Him. Okay. And yes, it's about my fine husband. But I looked at him the other day and teared up thinking about his essence, thinking about how sweet he is and how he's such a blessing. He's the epitome of true love. He carries it in his spirit. He exudes love saturated with Black love. When he speaks, one can hear it. I looked at him the other day and thought about the man he is, how I qualified to be his wife with no prerequisites. Of all the girls in the world, he saw me as his perfect bride, as a young girl, unsure of herself, just trying to find my stride. I looked at him the other day and heard this message: the pleasure is mine having him around to share all of life's blessings.
Nice. Nice. You got snap now. Yeah, snap. Yeah, snap.
So
Good.
that's
So,
that one.
all right. So that's society. You got one on love, and then now for the third section. So you talk about life now, right? As well.
Yeah.
All right. So
Right.
give us something that can help us in the area of our life.
All right. Let me see. I'm trying to get to I wish I had a kind of bookmark.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I want to talk about purpose
Okay.
because I think in life, I think most of us, we know that we have a purpose. And I think that we spend all this time trying to figure out or trying to find what our purpose is. And sometimes in life we get knocked down, but we get back up and we keep just pushing. But we cannot get discouraged. We got to keep chasing that purpose because we all have one. And so this one is entitled Insatiable Purpose. Okay. Insatiable purpose. Oh, a little bit of education before I start. This one is not a rhyming couplet. It is not a haiku. It's going to be what's called a free verse poem. Okay. So a free verse poem is where, there's no rhyme, there's no meter to it, there's no real rhythm. I'll read it with a little bit of rhythm, but you won't be able to count off the rhythm as you can in other poems, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. So again, this one is entitled Insatiable Purpose. We all have two commonalities: death and purpose. One of those we may never meet. The other chases us daily until it finally wins. We run frantically from death, but only true seekers encounter purpose. This is the greatest conundrum of life: continual resistance of death while in continual pursuit of purpose. And on purpose chasing, I only know these things: that whatever he has for me is for me, that he knew me before he formed me in the womb, that he knows the plans that he has for me, and that all things are possible through him, and that I've never seen the righteous forsaken. So I'll just keep studying my word and keep striving for my purpose. God is blessing me daily and continuously and earnestly to search for purpose in him while evading death. We are all housed on life's dead-end street, hoping purpose pulls into the driveway before the hearse.
Nice. Snap, snap, snap it up, snap it up. All right, good, good. So with all the poetry that you've compiled, how long did it take for you to put this book together?
So I would say it took me about to put it together. It really didn't take long at all, probably about a month to really go through and figure out the things that I wanted to focus on. But now, how long did it take me to write it? That's a different question, because I've been writing pieces all along the way. I mean, I don't even know, probably years. I have not included any from my teenage years or anything like this. All of these are from my adult life. So I really can't say. But as far as sitting down and compiling, sorting through the things and figuring out which ones may fit where to make a clear and coherent book, I would say about a month. And it was a whole lot of back and forth. Actually, I'm still kind of making sure, like, okay, do I want this one here? Does it flow? But I think I'm settled on it now, though. I'm
Yeah.
settled.
Yeah. So of all the poems that you have written, are there one or two that stick out that your favorites that you really, heart and soul poured into it, that it doesn't just as you said before, you don't just feel it, but everybody feels it when they hear it.
Let's see. I have gotten quite a few good reviews on. There's one that's actually the namesake of the book. It's entitled Unapologetic. So
That's the one. Yeah.
of course that one. And then let's see. There's also one, now again, in my section on society, I delve into race. And so as a professor, of course I've dealt with race.
Right.
I don't just teach I teach at an HBCU also, but I've taught at, PWIs, and race is real, there,
Right.
especially when you're a young Black woman standing to teach in front of, people that don't necessarily share your same background, and your same gender. There's something to be said for those of us who can continuously push through that, because it can be a beast.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's one of the ones that I have found that really resonates with a lot of people. Also, I mean, there's quite a few, but those are the two that really come to mind right now.
Okay. So you have that. Would you have Unapologetic, or you want to share the other one?
Let's see. Let me. I'm trying to find it. I should have had it bookmarked. It's taking me a while to flip back. I will share a part of Unapologetic.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
All right.
And I do have a table of contents. I can just use that. Okay. Okay. All right, so this one is entitled Unapologetic. And again, this is a free verse. It does not rhyme. It does not follow any particular form. And I'm only going to read a part of it because I need to keep something for
Right.
the
Absolutely.
stalker. All right, so this to me is sort of my anthem for a lot of women, and mainly Black women, because I feel like we deal with so much. I really do feel like, we deal with a lot of things that men never even have to consider dealing with. And so this book is kind of my anthem. Is why the book was entitled Unapologetic. And again, it just it's for all tired women. Okay. But I lost myself for a while, but now I'm back again. Years later, and lost many a friend. Coming full circle, coming into my own. Trials of life put me in this zone. It's funny that one has to lose in order to gain. And in that loss, the self no longer remains the same. All of the shame and the pain once hidden comes to light. So within yourself, you fight with all of your might to keep yourself under wraps and not become unglued. Trying to save face because there's too much to lose. Forget it. I'm done playing by society's rules. And I'm just gonna stop right there. Because I then just kind of go into, just a lot of things that we have to deal with as women. But yeah, and I did say that one didn't follow a rhyme. It is actually a couplet. I was gonna do the professor. That one does not follow a rhyme, but Unapologetic does.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, good. So for those who are poets or who write poetry, or those who have trouble verbally expressing their feelings. How important is it for how important was it for you to use poetry as your outlet, and how important is it for them?
You know what? It was so important to me because it's one of the ways that I feel most free. I personally, I just feel as though it's I won't say the easiest way for me to express because it's not easy at all.
Hmm.
Because you have to do it in such a way that it still resonates with other people, which
Yeah.
is that's what's what's kind of difficult about poetry. It's a
Right.
form of expression, but it's also meant to be consumed, so it needs to be well written and well expressed.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just what speaks to me the loudest, if that makes sense. It's
Right.
what screams at me the loudest when I go to express myself. I mean, I'm great at writing essays. I can sit down and I can do that. I'm great at writing some research. I have plenty of stuff published. But for me, I'm most fulfilled when I can sit and conquer um, figuring out how to best express myself in a way that others can get it and appreciate it in the fewest amount of words. So it's
Okay.
almost like a challenge because poetry shouldn't be so elaborate. I mean, there are different types and different forms. I actually have some prose in here as well in the book, and of course, the prose is longer than poetry.
Yeah.
Um, but it is what provides a challenge to me, but
Hmm.
it's also what speaks to me the loudest in terms of expression.
Good. And you say you still have your journals from when you were a teenager too?
No, actually, I don't. I wish I did. We
Okay.
actually were a part of, there was a tornado that hit the Pinson area a few years back, and all of my
Yeah.
stuff was in my mom's garage, but it got
Uh,
destroyed. So, yeah,
okay.
I don't have any of that anymore, but like I have two right here.
Mm.
And then I have a few more upstairs as well that are just full of not just my poetry, but my prayers.
Hmm.
Writing is just what I do to kind of get through and to kind of cope.
Yeah.
And I also like to be able to go back and look at it and reread it. But like I said earlier, a lot of it, as I reread it, I
Hmm.
can see that it kind of turns itself into poetry. It kind of
Poetry.
flows like poetry. So it's just like I said, it's just what I navigate to and for expression.
Good. So, what would you say to those who are aspiring authors and those who are thinking about writing their own books? What encouragement or advice would you give to those who are, looking to do what you do, or even if they have written poetry, to put it in a book form, so that the world can see some of your journaling, some of your innermost feelings? How would you encourage those people?
So the first thing that I would say is putting together a book. It can be daunting. It can even be intimidating. But I would
Hmm.
say that if you are writing, you are a writer. If you
Hmm.
are writing, you are a writer. A lot of times we think of this glamorous life or some big person that we don't know that's an author, but
Hmm.
or a poet. But it's all of us. If writing is your way of expression,
Hmm.
um, I say do it. And when you sit down, the thing that's different about a poetry collection is that it has to flow though.
Okay.
You have to be specific and really intentional about the pieces that you select for your sections. And so that I would say that's not the most difficult, but the most time consuming piece because you'll go back and forth and there's this tug of war, but you really want it to flow so that the reader can get the most out of the book also. So again, doing a poetry collection, I wouldn't say that it's easy. It's not easy, but
Hmm.
it's worth it. It's definitely worth it, and it's very much so fulfilling. And so, like I said, if you are writing, you are a
Hmm.
writer. If you are
Good.
writing poetry, you are a poet. You
Good.
just are. You don't need permission from anybody else. You are a
Good.
poet. You are a writer.
Good. Good. Now, you're an educator, and we're yet praying for everyone that is in education with these uncertain times that we're going through. Um, how do you feel going into a season where we don't know, what the future is going to hold? For those students who are going back to school, with kind of some questions that nobody can answer at this point. How hard is it being an educator to stay focused enough to understand that we have to still, guide and lead the children in the area of education?
That's a really a really difficult question. And it's difficult twofold because not
Okay.
only am I an educator, but I'm also a parent. And she's
Right.
start going into her first year. She's going into kindergarten. And who wants their
Right.
child to start off school? Their first encounter with school is in a time of
Right.
uncertainty like this, So,
Yeah.
it's just really difficult. But I am a woman of faith. I know that
Yeah.
God makes no mistakes. I'm gonna continue to use prayer, but also wisdom because He gives us both. We
Yes.
pray, but then He also gives us wisdom. So for me, the choice that I have made for my daughter is to do the virtual
Okay.
choice,
Mhm.
mainly because, we don't know what's out there. We don't know what's in those schools. We don't,
Right.
and I don't want to use my baby as I hate to say it, but as a political sacrifice. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
get too political, but I do kind
Yeah.
of have my own views about the way that it's going.
Mhm.
And, we just want safety for all of us, not just our children, but ourselves. So we don't
Yeah.
want to use teachers as a sacrifice either, right?
Right. Right.
So, like I said, pray, know that
Mhm.
God makes no mistakes, but then also use that wisdom that He has given us. We have to individually do what's best for us, our household, our children, and our health. And so
Yeah.
that's the best advice I can give to anybody because my situation is different than somebody else's and theirs is different, so
Right.
pray and then ultimately use wisdom.
Yeah. All right. One final thought before we leave.
Okay.
Share with us one final thought that you want us to leave with, knowing either through your poetry or just a life lesson that you want to leave with the people.
Okay, so a life lesson that I want to leave with everyone is this. This is a quote that I live by. I started living by it as a young adult, a teenager. But it's live life in a manner that there is no room for shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'll
Mhm.
say it again. Live life in a manner that leaves no room for shoulda, coulda, and woulda. And what I mean by that is you only get one life to live.
Mhm.
If you want to write that book, write it. If you want to write that poetry, write it. If you want to start a business, start it. If you want to go back to school, go back to school. So I can use myself as an example and as a testimony. I was born into poverty. I had two teenage parents I never saw my parents together. They weren't a couple. Um, but, so I was born into a different situation. But what I can say is that I'm grateful for my situation. I'm grateful and thankful for the way that I was born and the way that I was raised into my situation because God afforded me every blessing. I kept my eyes stayed on Him, and I can
Yeah.
honestly say that God has afforded me every blessing that I prayed for, that I thought I desired, that was a desire of my heart.
Yeah.
And I also attribute not just my prayer and Him blessing me, but me just having that mentality of, you know what, I'm not going to look back 50 years from now saying I shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Right.
I'm
Right.
going to do it
Right.
as long as God continues to put breath in my body and gives me the creativity and the opportunity to be able to make things happen in His will. I'm going to do it. So that's what I say. It doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, the way you were born, what situation you were born into. None of that matters. Just be who God called you to be, and be you and be well.
All right. Well, good. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. We so enjoyed your poetry, enjoyed your story. Tell the people how they can keep up with all things Sharonica Nelson.
Absolutely. So I do have a website. It is www.sharonicanelson.com. Again, www.sharonicanelson.com. I am on Facebook, and my Facebook name is SMN Nelson. Again, that's SMN Nelson. And then I'm also on Instagram. I do not do Twitter. I don't know how to tweet. I need to figure that one out. But on Instagram, I am SM_Nelson. And so you can go and find me on either of those platforms. And I do want to add that the book is up for pre-order right now, and it's on my website at sharonicanelson.com/books. And so that's how you can get your signed copies. Once it actually releases on Amazon, those copies won't be signed, of course. But if you want to pre-order now, a signed copy you definitely can. And I greatly appreciate your support. And I hope that something that I said or something that I even read motivates you and helps you just continue on your journey.
Good. Again, thank you so much for sharing with us. And thank you all for joining us today. We hope that you have been inspired and enlightened. We thank God for the creativity of poetry, being able to express yourself through the gift of poetry. For all those writers, for all those poets, keep at it. Somebody needs to see your work. Somebody needs to hear what you have inside of you, and not just hear it, but feel it as well. So again, thanks for joining us today. Share this even now. Share it with some of the students that may be interested in poetry. Some of you have had some poetry in your life that kept you from doing some things, and so we want you to share it even right now on your page and start a watch party even right now. I am Rashard Hollman, and I want you to know that we love you. There is nothing you can do about it. God bless you and God keep you is our prayer.